Hello, and welcome to the Simply Business Interview Podcast, a podcast created by business owners for business owners. I am your host, John Jennings. And I believe that most business owners are working way too hard for much too little. And one of our issues is that we overcomplexify things. I believe the answers are almost always within us or within our reach. I like to say that I'm a simple man with simple ideas. So welcome to Simply Business. All right, today we are joined by PJ Thelen, who is the CEO of Rove IQ. Looking forward to hearing his story, his journey to becoming the CEO of his company. PJ, why don't you just begin by telling us a little bit about your journey and how you came to be the CEO of Rove IQ.
Well, John, first and foremost, it's nice to get a chance to meet you, and I appreciate you allowing me to be part of your podcast.
Absolutely.
So, my name is PJ Thelen. I'm here in northern Kentucky, which is a suburb of Cincinnati, Ohio. And when I got your invite, John, I was kind of thinking back to my journey that kind of led me to today. I worked in corporate America. I was a CPA with Arthur Anderson. I went to an IT hardware reseller and services organization for 19 years where I kind of grew up. But inside that organization was a very entrepreneurial spirit. My last 9 years, we were fortunate enough to sell the company 3 times. And
Wow.
on the third transaction, they said, PJ, we love you, but we don't need you. So I went to work for one of my biggest clients, which was Kroger, where I ran a really cool, innovative, and transformative division called Sunrise Technology. And that was essentially a startup in a Fortune 17 company.
Wow.
So after 2 years there, for me, I wanted things to move a lot faster, and it just wasn't in the cards. So I said, I'm going to take everything that I've learned over the course of these last 28 years and go do my own thing, where that was the thought. So I came across a very successful private equity organization called RKCA. They're based here in Cincinnati. They had an investment in a company at that point was called SmartLink. It was a hobby in my mind for the 2 original founders. And they had to make a decision. Do we double down or do we scale back the company even more? So I decided to take that entrepreneurial spirit, join the organization as CEO, invest my own money. And then with RKCA's support, as well as the 2 founders, we went out and did a raise. And we've been off and running every day since.
Wow, that's exciting and what a risk that takes. It's interesting though how many people I interview for this podcast that have similar types of stories. They're all unique. They all have their own flavor to it. But years in corporate, decided to it's time to do something different. There's such a desire. I hear the survey says that about 70% of people in corporate want to be self-employed. And that might be true, but the interesting part is about 7% is how many actually make it there. Really? So it's pretty small percentage.
My father, John, had his own company. So I kind of grew up in a household where, it was a very entrepreneurial environment. And it was always, to me, I wanted to be like him. And then you kind of start the corporate ladder, and it kind of draws you into each of the exciting opportunities that they have to offer. But as you look to the entrepreneurs across the street, you're always impressed. You're like, man, I wish I was like him or her. But you're right. I mean, not everybody can do it. But when you have the opportunity, I always say, take it, because it's filled with a lot of fun, a lot of excitement. Yes, uncertainty, but it's definitely worth doing.
Yeah. So tell just a little bit more about what Rove IQ does and what sparked your interest in that technology.
So it's not very easy to define exactly what we do, but the bottom line is we're a software company. And it just so happens that our software sits on interactive digital displays that you put in high foot traffic areas, both indoor and outdoor. So think like mixed use real estate developments, college university campuses, smart cities, healthcare. These are rather large east to west properties where you kind of park on the outside and you have to kind of walk in. Well, when you walk in, the properties are so big. Where am I? What is around me? And how do I go from here to there? So that concept is called wayfinding. We do a lot more than just wayfinding, but that is our number one application. So at the end of the day, we provide a solution to our customer, which is a combination of a piece of hardware and then our software, where we build out hyper-local interactive 3D maps. So think Google Maps, think Apple Maps, but in this case, it's Rove IQ maps unique to the property or the customer. And as people walk up, they interact with it, which is kind of cool. It's very experiential. When they're not touching it, John, it has the ability to run digital out-of-home advertisements, which then generates ancillary revenue to the city or the property.
Yeah.
So experiential, advertising, and then the third element is data analytics and reporting. We capture every touch, so we understand how our software is being used. And then we have the ability to add a second camera that captures anonymized video data, which is sex, race, age, emotion, dwell time, those kind of things. And then we give that information back to the customer in a single pane of glass concept so they can understand what's going on in their property.
Yeah, very cool. As I told you before we got on, like I dabbled in this space for a few years, several years ago. And I remember that whole ability to detect the race and gender and everything of the person was just starting to come out then. That was, and of course, AI, I'm sure, has blown that out of the water in the last few years.
Yeah, you know what? It has. The software that we kind of leverage is they call it computer vision. AI has put it now, times 10, times 100. I mean, it's just amazing. But, the million-dollar question is, how do you want to use that data to help with the experience, help add value to the tenant, et cetera? And every day brings on new features and functionality.
Yeah, very cool. So you alluded to it. There's a challenge every day, surprise every day. What was the going from corporate to this entrepreneurial CEO role? What was the biggest life-changing type difference for you?
I was always been impressed with every entrepreneurial out there, but I never thought about how they really manage the emotional aspect of the pressures associated with running a company, whether it's cash flow, whether it's payroll, whether it's the next win, whether it's your culture, your brand. We all know it's all of those things.
Right.
The biggest challenge is, at the end of the day, I feel like I truly breathe, eat, drink, sleep, Rove IQ. Now, I love it, which is fantastic, but I'm telling you, it definitely is on your mind 24/7 because it's so important to you and it's related success for your team. So, how do you find that balance? It's not easy. It really isn't. And the great news is I'm having fun and I'm enjoying it. But I mean, the whole idea of time off, I don't know about that one. We'll save that for another conversation.
Yeah, I know the idea that idea of thinking about it 7 by 24. I'm that way with my company and what I do, and I don't have near the issues as I used to when I was first starting out, but the wake up call that your mind gives you at 3 a.m. that makes you start thinking about things, and it's really hard to shut that down and get back to sleep. That's a challenge that I know I face.
Yeah, it is. But you know what? That also keeps you very motivated. I have a very, very talented team and we're very transparent and collaborative with each other. But I mean, we have to make sure this brand stays relevant, not only now, but for many years to come. So, how do we do the right things to put ourselves in that position? And that's where the emphasis of the thought and the strategy is really kind of goes directed towards.
So what's been the biggest challenge? You mentioned several things, cash flow and culture and staffing and other things. What's been the biggest challenge for you?
Yeah, you know what? It's kind of interesting. When I first got here, our average sales cycle was 15 months. And that is a long sales cycle. I mean, in my previous world, we always said we could touch a customer today and close something within 60 days. So 15 months just seemed like an eternity for me. We also were selling at that point in time property to property. So we had to really focus on who were the right decision makers and how do we do a better job at selling top down. So like in the mixed use real estate, just as an example, we now sell to the developers. And our goal is to become that preferred partner when they're building something new or renovating an existing property. So something like that has shortened our sales cycle significantly, almost cutting it in half, which has been a big deal for us. The second is, you got to create scale to your business. I mean, we can't sell in increments of 1 or 2. We'll never get where we want to go. So I always use the analogy, you want to rinse and repeat to create the scale. So that has caused us to focus on less verticals. But the verticals we do focus on, we need to make sure we generate material value to, in all honesty, impress the customer, to cause them to want to do something and want to do something now. So those are probably the two biggest things, that in my mind are, obstacles we had to overcome, and we had to overcome pretty quickly. Because for a small company, we didn't have the luxury of a 15-month sales cycle. We simply didn't. Yeah. So, shortening the sales cycles and creating scale to our business are, two primary areas that we're making progress on every day.
Very good. Great examples. And scaling is probably the number one thing I have my clients struggle with. They're always trying to scale. And, we talk about the founder's trap or the owner's trap, that idea that the owners, if there's anything that the owner has to do is to get, if there's any process that the owner is in the middle of and is that choke point in, then you've got a limitation. And so you have to kind of work to eliminate yourself from the choke point so that the company can thrive without you.
Yeah, that's very true. I mean, we always say, our people here at Rove IQ are empowered. When it comes to making a decision, that is the benefit of a small business. There's not a lot of bureaucracy, and we can come to conclusions pretty quick. Don't get me wrong. Sometimes there's bumps in the road because we didn't necessarily make the right decision, but we learned from it and moved forward. But I mean, that has actually been a positive. I mean, how do we come up with a business challenge today, talk about it today, make a decision today, which allows us to move forward. And that's been a beautiful thing. That's been actually a lot of fun.
Yeah. I sometimes tell the story. When I left corporate, went to this AV company, mid-sized company that I told you about. First week or two, they were having issues with their network. And so I brought in a friend of mine to look at it. He gave me some recommendations, and I needed to spend like, I don't know, $10,000 or $15,000 on some new network equipment. And I was the VP of IT or whatever. And so I go into the VP of admin and said, okay, I need to buy this equipment, have it installed. How do I do that? She goes, well, just buy it. And I said, well, isn't there like a form I need to do? I said, I had a multi-million-dollar, budget in my corporate role, but I couldn't spend $10,000 on just an item without, an approval process. And they're like, no, just do it. You're the IT guy, do it, So there's a certain freedom that you have in smaller companies that when you leave corporate, it's kind of just refreshing in a lot of ways.
It is. Obviously, we definitely need controls, and there's a balance to everything that we do, but you're 100% right. But that's also what makes it the most fun. I mean,
yeah.
I tell our team, we're going to make mistakes. We are. How do you overcome that? How do you try to make sure it doesn't happen again? Because when it's a repeat problem, that becomes a bigger issue. But I mean, there's no doubt, a big thing is this thing called culture. I mean, people have to be collaborative. They have to feel like they have the support to make these decisions. And so far, so good on that note, which has been nice to see. Yeah.
Very good. Have you, how do you just invoke that culture on a regular basis? I mean, I know that if you're not talking about it regularly, it just disappears. It can almost disappear overnight.
Yeah. People always laugh when I answer that question. So I'm 6'8", John.
Oh, wow. Okay.
I went to a small
You don't look
college.
like that on TV.
Yeah, get down here. I went to a small college in Mobile, Alabama called Spring Hill College, and I played basketball. And to this day, I have 8 best friends from that Spring Hill College basketball team. And we're actually closer today than we were back in the 1989 to 1993 era. Wherever I go, I am building little Spring Hill College basketball teams.
Hmm.
And I'm dead serious about that. People that like to have fun on the court and off, people that are very collaborative, people that are very accountable, people that bring thought leadership and corresponding action plans. And at the end of the day, they want to win. And I've been very successful in building those types of teams that have been very loyal. And more importantly, they've been successful.
Yeah.
So we talk about it every day, whether it's an individual call, whether it's a team call, everybody has a voice. At the end of the day, we got to make decisions. So I always say, you may not like my conclusion, but at least I'm going to convey to you why I made that decision. And I'm just telling you, I think that just is, it's been the right approach for me. It's worked well for me, and it's still working at Rove IQ.
That's very cool. So so you're in the, technology field. How do you stay up to date with changes? AI, like I said, is having an impact on other things. What's your answer for people who struggle to stay up in the technology sector?
You know, I think technology is the most fascinating vertical or industry that's out there. It's not right for everybody, but at the end of the day, you're being part of something that is constantly changing and evolving, which hopefully creates opportunity every day for people.
Hmm.
Uh, so that's the good news. The bad news or the challenge is you got to stay current on all that technology. And that takes time, that takes an investment. So for me, it's been a passion of mine. I mean, I start each day where I probably spend an hour and a half to myself where I'm reading and or thinking. As
Hmm.
part of the thinking, I'm defining that day's activities that I have to get done in terms of reading, what's new that's going on in my industry. Is Rove IQ already embracing that, or is it something new? If it's something new, how do I engage the right people with my team to go have the right conversations with those experts to see how it's applicable to our business? I probably spend half of my time each week on making sure that I understand what's going on out there in industry and facilitating relationships and or discussions. So a lot of that comes from studying and networking. But I mean, if you think about a small company, we have to stay relevant, and
Yeah.
we only know so much. So we have to
Right.
rely on our customers, our partners, and more importantly, people in the industry to give us feedback, to give us knowledge that we then have to go act on, and then hopefully retain and implement.
Yeah.
So I mean, it's something that's a daily focus, John, and it's not a part-time job. You can make an argument it's something you have to do almost full-time, but you're doing it for the right reasons.
Yeah, that's awesome. And that morning routine, boy, that's a discipline that a lot of people don't have. And you can't sleep in, hit the snooze 3 times, and rush out the door and be expected to be stay on top of and fresh in your market.
Yeah, my wife always laughs. She says, you can't remember what you did yesterday personally, but you can remember what you did the last year professionally. And you know
Yeah,
what? I'm not quite sure what that answer is, but at the end of the day, you do need that discipline because it's important to you. And when
yeah,
you're an entrepreneur and you have a small company and you worry about the personal and the professional development of your team, there's a lot of pressure on your shoulders. So you want to do those kind of things.
yeah. Excellent, excellent. Well, this has been great, and I really appreciate you sharing some insights. I know my listeners are right in this wheelhouse. So um, you haven't been in that role very long, but you've got a wealth of experience. What advice would you offer let's think of that person that was kind of in your shoes just 4 or 5 years ago. What kind of advice would you offer them right now?
I have a 23-year-old son, John, that just graduated from Auburn. And he's been talking to me about starting his own apparel brand for the last 2 years. And my comment to him is go do it.
Yeah.
Do it while you're young. I shouldn't say rudely, you don't have a lot to lose, but that is the truth.
Right.
I mean, what's the worst? What's the worst thing that could happen? It's not successful. Sure, that does stink. Don't get me wrong, but you're going to learn so much about yourself. You're going to learn so much about business. So to answer your question is, I would say try to do it as when you're young. Take the risk. There's not as significant downside. The second thing is, I'll use my analogy again with my Spring Hill College basketball team. You got to build a very talented, collaborative team that you have a lot of trust in, you have a lot of respect for, and you have a lot of confidence. Because at the end of the day, you need more smart people to help you do what you're being asked to do. You cannot do it yourself.
Yeah.
So that team aspect, I just think is so, so important. The last thing I always say is don't be afraid to fail. I mean, failure is not necessarily a bad thing. It really isn't. So put yourself out there, take the risk. Hopefully it's successful, but it'll still be a great experience.
Yeah, excellent. That's a pretty common from the comment that I get from the entrepreneurial people I have on here is that fear of failure is the biggest thing you have to get over, and you just have to, as Nike said, just do it.
Just do it.
And
my wife still thinks I'm crazy, but she knows I'm loving what I'm doing. It's what I've always wanted to do.
My wife is kind of that way too. She could not do this, and but she is happy that I'm doing it. So
that's right.
Yeah. So if people have questions, how's the best way of finding out more about you or your company?
Yeah, so we're roveiq.com, ROVEIQ.com. That's our webpage. You can always email me at pj@roveiq.com. If I have the time, I can assure you I'll make it in terms of responding back to them. It's always great to meet that next person that's doing something really cool and interesting that I can learn from. But bottom line is the door is always open for the right reasons.
Yeah, great. Well, PJ, thank you for your time. It's been a pleasure meeting you, and certainly have enjoyed hearing your story and the story of Rove IQ. So thank you for being.
I really appreciate it as well. Thanks for having me, and we look forward to what the future may hold.
Thank you for listening to today's episode. If you liked it, please share or like it on whatever platform you use. You can find me on social media. On most platforms, I'm John K. Jennings. My first book is also available. Your Baby is Ugly tells you about 10 truths that business owners need to hear, but often won't, and how to overcome them. You can find it on Amazon. Just search for Your Baby is Ugly. And be watching for our next episode, where I'll interview another business owner who will share their stories and insights into what it's like to create a great business.